everybody and welcome. In today's video, I'd like to show you everything that I made this spring season, and this season was very busy for me, so I'm not entirely sure how I made all the things that I made. I made about 20 projects in total, including some small embroidery projects, but mostly sewing, and I think mostly it was because I had a lot of deadlines to sew for, so events that I was attending to sew for, and so it sort of pushed me to sew in moments where I usually would have done something else. But I'm excited to share those with you today. And for events I had this season, I was in London in mid-March for a work event, and I was able to do some fabric shopping if you'd like to check that video out. I was also at a friend's baby shower mid-April that she had for her very first baby that she's expecting any day now. And I was able to make some handmade gifts for that. And then I was off to the United States to visit with some friends in the Northeast in Boston, Connecticut, and then Vermont for about a week, which was really lucky, and I'm really happy that I was able to do that. And then I was in New York City for a work event for a few days, and I also made a vlog about that if you'd like to check that out. But immediately upon returning from New York City, still jet lagged, I was off to a wedding in the north of France where my husband and I were invited to a friend's wedding, and I made a dress to wear to that. And then I also had a backup dress that I just made just in case I didn't finish the main dress that I wanted to make. So I'll show you all of that. But before we begin, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sarah. I am originally from the United States, but I moved to France in 2009, and I'm now a French and American citizen. And so if you hear me talk about going to the US as a visitor, even though I sound American, that's why. I live in France. And on this channel, I mostly share my sewing projects, but a little bit of knitting and a little bit of embroidery as well, especially Japanese traditional embroidery that I'm getting into right now. So I hope you find that interesting, and welcome. So I have about 20 projects to share with you, so get comfortable and let's get started. Towards the end of the wintertime and early spring, the weather here is still pretty blustery, windy, and rainy, and cold. And so I was craving both happy spring colors, but also warmth and comfort. So I made two Helen's Closet Blackwood cardigans in these two colors. I'll show you them on me in a moment, but I wanted to show the fabric really quickly because this is I've shown you this before if you've been watching my videos recently. This double knit fabric from Tissu Amer, or Stoff Amer, they're based in Germany. And it's this really, really soft, really lovely viscose jersey. It's mostly made up of viscose rather than polyester, which is why I love it, because it's super, super soft and squishy. It's perfect for any double knit projects. It's very, very stretchy, so you'll have to take that into account as well, because some things, if it needs to be close fitting, for example, it's not quite adapted, but I love it. And it does pill a little bit after time, but as long as you wash it with the delicates in your machine or on the delicate cycle, it lasts a little bit longer. But I wanted to make it in these two colors, this light sort of pastel green and then light lilac color to add some color to my wardrobe. And I just love this cardigan. It's something that I've made multiple times in the past. It fits really easily and it's really easy to sew. It sews up really quickly because it doesn't have any closures in the front like a zipper or buttons. And so yeah, I like the way it fits. I like the way it slots into my wardrobe, and I can wear it over dresses or combinations with skirts because that's usually what I wear. And yeah, I think the green one is a little bit harder to incorporate into my wardrobe in that it doesn't go with everything, or not a whole lot that I have in my handmade wardrobe, but I think I could fix that. I think I could make more neutrals that'll go with it. The only thing I modified is something that I did in a previous version, in a light pink version, is that I shortened the sleeves from the long length. It's a very long length that hits towards the base of the thumb to 3/4 lengths, because I like that better. It sort of breaks up the silhouette a little bit to be lighter, I think, instead of this very bulky long sleeve. And especially for the early spring season when the temperatures are warming up, with these colors, in any case, I'd be wearing something lighter and I wouldn't need so much warmth. So yeah, that's all I did. And these sewed up pretty easily, and I'm really happy with them. So if you've been to this channel before, you probably already know this very, very well. I really love the silver Edie top for really slinky viscose jerseys that I like to sleep in. And so this season, I think I needed to get it out of my system, or just, no, I think it wasn't so much to get it out of my system because I'll probably make it again, but to make it so that I have lots and lots of colors, fun colors, because I knew I was going to wear this as pajamas, and I wanted to make so many that I would have a constant rotation of them so that I didn't have to miss out or wear something else when it's in the wash. So I made 5 in this range of colors, mostly purple. So I've got this sort of woady blue, millennial pink, which I didn't know that was a color, but there you go. This light lilac, a sort of more light aubergine color, and then a dark aubergine sort of purple. And my favorite is the lilac one. I think that the color is just really happy. But yeah, I needed color in my wardrobe, I think, and I wanted some more lightness and happiness under my machine, and so I have, for now, gotten the Edie top out of my system, and now I have a sufficient stock so that I'm never out of Edie tops to sleep in. I mostly love this top because I can make it in these really, really soft, slinky viscose jerseys. They do wrinkle really easily, and I haven't ironed these for this video, but I don't mind when I'm wearing it to sleep. And it's not that bad. It's just sort of worn in and casual, and it's so soft and luxurious against the skin that I really love wearing it. I think that, yeah, it's my equivalent of luxury. And then I really love the neckline. It's this boat neck neckline and then 3/4 length sleeves, and I think it just looked really elegant at the same time, and so it's definitely a wardrobe staple for me, and I will probably be making more, although I don't need any more to sleep in, so I might be making more to wear out in the future, but I don't need any more now. I have, yeah, gotten it pretty much out of my system, I think. The next project was a little bit of procrastination because I should have started working on my wedding guest dress then, but I started working on this Sew Over Una dress because I really wanted to work on with this fabric. This is sort of this really light mint green textured cotton elastane blend fabric, and it's just lovely. And I've had this in my stash for years. I don't even remember where I got it. I think it was Sew Tissu, but I'm not sure. And it's just so lovely. And I was thinking of making a skirt out of it when I put it in my stash originally, but it was just so beautiful that I decided to make a whole dress out of it because I wanted to feature it. I wanted it to be the main feature of my outfit if I were to wear it because it's gorgeous. And so I made the Sew Over Una dress. This is something that I've made before in both light cottons or more smooth cotton poplins, but never in a textured cotton elastane blend. And I think that this one so far is my favorite because the elastane in the cotton, I think it's only about 5%, it gives it a little bit of give, and because it's a tighter dress, as in the bodice is fitted and the skirt is more of a pencil skirt, it does sort of restrict the movement of your legs. You don't have a full range of movement with your legs in this kind of skirt, even with the vent in the back. And so the elastane just makes it a little bit more comfortable, especially sitting in and moving around in. And so yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I did modify it in a few ways. So first I graded from the size 6 to the size 8 at the hips. So size 6 in the bust and the waist, and then size 8 at the hips. And then I also lowered the waistband elastic and casing on the inside 2 centimeters so that it would be at my natural waist rather than higher, because I find that the original placement of the elastic is a little bit more empire waist, and that's not very flattering on me. I think that for me it's not the look I'm going for. Because my hips are larger than my waist by about 2 sizes, usually it sort of poofs the fabric out and I just look pregnant, which is not the look I'm going for. So I lowered that, like I have in my previous versions. Then I also added an invisible zipper at the left side seam from the top of the side seam down past the elastic casing. So I ended up not sewing the elastic casing entirely open on the inside. I sewed it down at the side seams at the left. Because my waist is so much smaller than my hips and somewhat my shoulders, I have a really hard time in dresses like this. Even if it's got this elastic waist, I have a hard time getting it over my shoulders when I'm getting into the dress. And so I needed some kind of opening like that, and I've done that in my previous versions as well, and it just keeps it from taking all of my makeup off and messing up my hair every time I put it on or take it off. And so yeah, I'm glad I added that. And then a little cool detail is I added for the facing little scraps of a previous Una dress that I made here on the inside. And I don't know, I think this is just a really simple dress. It's a pretty simple silhouette, but I find it to be simply elegant, and I just absolutely love it, especially to showcase really beautiful fabrics like this one. And I can't wait for it to warm up so that I can wear it more often. Then I was filming that spring making vlog that I made about a month ago, and I was heading off to the ballet, and I had this fabric, this cashmere blend stretch fabric from Fabric Godmother that I had purchased in London while I was there for work, and I decided to make the Coppelia wrap, and I had already cut it out, and so in that video you can see me speed sew it up before going to the ballet to see Sleeping Beauty. And I'm really happy with this one. It's super soft and slinky, as you can see. It's a little bit see-through, but that doesn't really bother me because I'm not planning on wearing it alone. And it's just lovely. It's got long sleeves. I made the wrap version rather than the high hip version so that there were ties that wrap around, and you can adjust the opening of the wrap in the front by tying it tighter or looser as you like. And I've made this wrap a few times before, but I think in this fabric it's luxurious, and because I made it in this sort of jeweled forest tone color, I think it works in more formal environments versus informal. For example, I have a light pink version and it's in a viscose jersey which has pilled with age, and I think that because the color and the texture of the viscose jersey versus the cashmere jersey makes it a little bit less formal, a little bit more slouchy. And so I wear it as a warm-up in my ballet classes or Pilates class when I go. And this one I think I could wear like I did to the ballet and it looks just fine. It does pill a little bit, but I think that it has such a luster or just a lovely, beautiful sort of color to it that I think that it would still work in a more formal setting like work or an event. And yeah, I'm really, really happy with this one, and you can see me make it in that vlog if you'd like to check it out. Then also in that Spring Makes vlog, I cut out a lot of projects for handmade gifts for my friends' babies. I have one friend who lives in Los Angeles who had a baby about 6 months ago, a little bit less, and I hadn't sent her a gift yet, so I wanted to make a few things for her. And then I have another friend who's expecting her baby very soon, and I was going to her baby shower and I wanted to make some handmade gifts for that too. So let's start with the baby shower one. I decided to make a sleeping sack, and it's not something that I've made before, but I found a free tutorial and pattern on a website. I can't remember the name of it now, but I'll put it below and also link it below so that you can check it out. But it was a pretty easy pattern to follow. I decided to make it in 2 different double gauze fabrics, so complementary double gauze fabrics, and I handmade some bias binding and attached it that way all the way around the top and the outer edges. Working with these fabrics was a little bit difficult just because double gauze is really squishy, and so it's hard to get precision with very squishy fabrics that are so openly woven. It went pretty well, but to add the bias binding, I did sew it down by machine one side and then fold it over, and then I hand sewed the rest of it to finish it neatly because it was just too complicated to get a precise line with my sewing machine with that one. And I also use sew-on snaps because I find that press-on snaps are the bane of my existence. They never stay on and they're really hard to get on in the first place. I find them to be much more of a choking hazard than sew-on snaps because sew-on snaps, I use double-threaded waxed thread to sew it on, and I think that it's much more durable that way, and if it starts to fray then it's visible. And then I also made a bunny lovey out of 2 squares of fabric and then also the head and the ears and little hands. This is something I found on an Instagrammer's page in her saved stories. She's French and she's called Petite Pearl on Instagram. I think that her profile is private, but you can request access and she usually grants it, at least for me. And it's saved in her stories as Bunny Lovey or Doudou Lapin if you speak French, and you can follow it. I've made this a few times before. I think it's really lovely and I really love the shape of it, and I think that she's really creative in the way that she's put it together. I love picking out the colors and then embroidering on a little face. So I made that, and then with all of the extra scraps I made little jewel bandanas or baby bandanas, and when you sew the snaps on they end up being reversible, and so I made them up in complementary colors on both sides so that they can be reversed. And I think I got 4 or 5, maybe even 6 out of the scraps of that double gauze fabric. And then I made the Sew Over It grocery bag to package it all up with this sort of eucalyptus colored cotton weave fabric from Rascal, which is an online French haberdashery. I've made this once before. I made it as a Christmas gift for my mother-in-law back in December, and you can watch that in my winter vlog video if you'd like to see me make that as well. And that was a thicker fabric, so it was a little bit harder under my machine. This one was a little bit less sturdy and so a little bit easier to sew. But yeah, I was happy I was able to make that, and I hope that they'll be useful to the parents. And then for my other friend in Los Angeles, I made another bunny lovey and lots of jewel bandanas out of extra fabric, but the main thing that I made was a blankie, and I self-drafted this one. I made it to be a rectangle, I think 65 by 75 centimeters. What I did differently with this blankie that I didn't do with the previous blankie that I made is that I quilted the fabrics together before I finished the edges, because the main problem I had with the first one is that once I quilted it, it sort of squished outward, even if I was using a walking foot on my machine. And so I wanted the edges to be straighter than the first one. And so yeah, that's what I did. I did it by machine, I quilted diagonally, and then I added the bias binding, self-made bias binding, as I did with the sleeping sack. So first by machine after squaring off these sides, and then sewing the other side down so that it would be neat. And I packaged that all up and sent it to California, and I think it has been received, and I hope it's been useful. My friend said that the bunny lovey is already one of her son's favorite toys to reach for, so I'm happy. My husband thinks they're so cute, he wants one now for himself, so we'll see. But yeah, I'm happy I was able to make gifts for my friends, even though it did take quite a long time. It took a lot longer than I thought it would, and especially cutting out, but even sewing. But yeah, it warmed my heart to be able to make gifts for them. I'm pretty sure I packaged up that gift for my friend in California about a day before I left for the United States. So it was sort of up to the very last minute. And then I was off to visit friends in the northeast of the United States and then also go to New York City for work. And then upon my return, I had a dress to finish that I was working on in advance, don't worry. I had about 6 hours to finish it before we left for Lille to go to this friend's wedding in the north of France. And I made this dress. So this is a mashup of two patterns. It is the sew over bodice here with the thin straps and the square neckline, and then the O's Patterns Ema skirt. I'll show you it on me in a moment, but I wanted to show you the fabric as well. This is a really lovely linen and viscose blend from Fabric Godmother, and it's one of the fabrics I picked up in London, not this year, but last year when I went for work, and I just love it. I think that the colors are a little bit hard for me to pull off. I think that they're a little bit brighter than I can pull off. I think I do better with muted colors, but I don't really mind. I don't think it's too far out, and I just love, yeah, the design and colors. I had a lot of trouble making this dress, however, because fitting the two patterns together wasn't easy. So here at the waist, the Ema dress has sort of a waistband here, and so I had to sort of hike up the skirt and cut off the excess at the top, because at first it was sort of pooling in the center back and back part because there's too much fabric there, and so I ended up having to unpick that waist seam and sort of like take it up in a sort of U shape here, and then I couldn't get the dress on. So I think that my measurements have changed a little bit since I've measured myself last time, and I think that I need just a little bit more space in the hips and waist than I did maybe a year or two previously. I think that the last time I measured myself was around when I was doing my wedding dress, and I think that when I'm stressed, I lose a little bit of weight. And I have gained that weight back in the 2 years since my wedding, and so I need to take that into account the next time I sew a pattern, because I didn't even look at the sizes. I just made the last size that I made, so I couldn't zip it up at the side. It was very tight. So I ended up taking it out at the side seams, more here, like sort of near the bottom of the ribs rather than up at the arm side or at the top of the seam, because there was even a little bit too much up at the top, and this is something that I have a lot with fitted bodices. And so yeah, I need to, in the future, check my measurements before I cut, even if I've already made the pattern piece before, and not feel bad about it either. So those are the main things that I changed, because it didn't fit correctly at first, and I was lamenting that for a while, which is why I also made that sew over uni dress, just in case. But in the end, it worked out. I was able to wear it, and it was fine. I think that I was a little bit worried that this fabric was a little bit too slubby and relaxed for a dress like this, because it doesn't have much of a bottom weight, and it clings. And I was worried about it clinging to curves after eating, for example. But it ended up having plenty of ease, not a lot of ease, but plenty of ease so that I could dance and move around without feeling restricted or without feeling like something skin tight was showing exactly how much I ate. And then I reinforced the bodice and the shape of the bodice by doing an underlayer of silk organza and then using a cotton poplin in this dark blue fabric as a lining. I think that I didn't need quite so much structure in the bodice. I think I probably could have used a lining that was a little bit less tightly woven and a little bit more openly woven like the main fabric, because it did sort of feel a little bit tighter on the inside. Just a tiny bit, not a lot, and it didn't show from the outside, so it's fine. But I think I'll think of that next time. And then I also didn't put in any boning in this one. So if you watched my previous vlog where I made a wedding guest dress, it was in this viscose fabric in the bright blue that I made for another wedding. It was with the same sew over rosy bodice, but with the sweetheart neckline. And with that one, I did also silk organza as an underlining, and then I had a viscose lining, so it wasn't as tightly woven, but then I also had boning in the bodice. And I took that out because I felt like it was too structured versus the very slubbiness of the skirt. It felt more coherent if the top were a little bit more relaxed as well. But yeah, I'm happy with how it turned out. I'll have to find an occasion to wear it again because that's the problem with party dresses, that it's hard to find an occasion to wear it again. But yeah, I'm glad I finished it in time, and I danced the night away. Upon my return from New York City and then also the wedding, I thought that I would be completely not into sewing at all, and the opposite was true. I ended up making 3 more projects before filming this video. So in the past 3 weeks just about, and I made 3 more things. So first I made another Seymour Kansey top. This is something I made before in a video that I made also, the Seymour Kansey top 3 ways. And this one is exactly the same. I'm holding it away from the camera so that it doesn't blow out the color. But this is exactly the same fabric as the white version I made, and then I also made it in exactly the same way. So with a pocket, I just didn't change the facing color because I didn't have transparency issues with this one or color issues. And yeah, it was really easy to sew up, super loose and lovely. And I think that because it's more of an open weave fabric, it's not going to look as formal as a solid black color because that would be a little bit too much contrast against my face, I think, or my softer colors in my hair, face, and skin, whatever. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really useful top this spring and summer when it gets warmer, and I'm happy I made it. It was easy and quick. Then I decided to make the Sew House 7 Revel top, or Revel topper, in this really light linen and viscose blend. This is something I got from Sacré Coupon, which is a fabric shop here in Paris, France, and they also have an online website. And it's this super silky soft linen viscose, and it's got a slight texture to it, like a basket weave texture to it, and it was very difficult to sew with. Not very, but it's kind of slippery and light, and you blow on it and it moves. But I wanted to make a light top out of this, especially because the Revel topper is quite boxy. I thought it would be a little bit more fitted around the waist and the shoulders, for example, but it turned out to be pretty boxy. So I'm happy that I made it in a slightly transparent fabric, because if it were opaque, it would create a visually more wide top. I can't remember exactly the size, but it wasn't the smallest, it was the second to last, or the second smallest size, because even if I thought that I could reduce the amount of ease at the waist with the smallest size and I'd probably fit into it, I didn't want the shoulders to be too tight or far up because they're cut-on sleeves, and I didn't want them to be bunching up. So I made that size because it corresponded to my measurements better, even if it did have the regular amount of lots and lots of ease. I think that this is going to be a great garment to wear in the summertime. It's loose and flowy and super light, and I think that it's going to keep me nice and cool, especially when it gets really hot and humid this summertime. The very last project that I finished before finally sitting down and making this list and deciding I'm going to film this video before I start making more is this dress that I'm wearing now. It is the Closet Core Crew pattern Periwinkle, the dress and shirt pattern. I made the dress version in this sort of, I'm not entirely sure, this mystery fabric. I've had it in my stash for so long that it was before I would catalog my fabrics and save all of the details about it, so I have no idea what the fiber content is. I think it's probably a linen and viscose blend. It's this really dense, sort of tightly woven fabric. It's very bouncy, it doesn't wrinkle, it doesn't feel like polyester either, but it's very tightly woven and very bouncy. And so I think it's, yeah, a viscose twill with some cotton or linen in it. And in this periwinkle color, so just like the name of the pattern. It's a shame because this pattern is no longer available for purchase. They've archived it. And it's the reason I bought a membership to Closet Core Crew patterns in the first place, because I absolutely loved this pattern and I wanted to download it before it was too late. The other patterns don't really appeal to me as much. This one is definitely much more my style, so I hope that they bring it back as an individual pattern that you can purchase separately, like they did with the Azure dress and top, or I think that was the name of it, and the sepia pants. But yeah, this is a lovely pattern. I really love the neckline and this little collar here, and then the grown-on sleeves and the strategically placed gathers here at the top to create some visual interest, and then also in the back. I changed this pattern only in 2 ways. I graded from a size 2 to a size 6 at the hips so that I would have enough ease in the skirt. Even if there was already lots of ease incorporated, I just wanted to have extra flowiness so that nothing would be restrictive, because this is something I'm going to be wearing when it's warmer out. And then I also didn't add the last button at the very top of the neckline because I thought that that created a really nice little V. With this fabric, because it's sort of stiff and bouncy at the same time, it lays closed as though there is a button there, and so it's not as open and casual as I intended it to be, but I'm making another one in a very casual fabric, so we'll see, and you'll see that soon. But I really like the way it looks. I like that I found these really pretty sort of shell buttons at my local haberdashery. I think these are really nice. And then it's got this fabric belt that I like to wear at the waist. You can wear it open or with a fabric belt. There's a lot of extra ease in the back, but I think it's fine. And then it's got pockets, really, really deep pockets, so that's great. The only thing is I'm not entirely sure that I can pull off this color. I think that periwinkle is one of those colors that I absolutely adore to look at, but I think on me it somewhat dulls my colors, like my hair and eyes. They're a little bit less bright when I wear this because it sort of overwhelms the very soft contrasts that I have in my own natural coloring. So we'll see. Let me know what you think, but I think, yeah, this might be a color that I need to wear muted versions of, like more muted and not as bright versions of. So, but I still love it, and I think, yeah, I think I'll be wearing this a lot this late spring, early summer season. So now on to my knitting projects. I have 3 to show you today that I completed. One is sort of a cheat because I completed it last summer, but I didn't block it until about a month ago. But the first thing that I made is this Kuruvikika Stay Toasty scarf that I made in this, I think it's some wool, some acrylic, I'm not sure. I got it from a friend who was getting rid of her stash that she got from her in-laws. I'm sort of passing it along. And I had just 2 balls of this, and this only took up 1 cake. And what kind of yarn was it? I think it was Bergère, which is like a French yarn company that's kind of going out of business, or you can't find this as easily anymore. And this is sort of this like heathery purple color, and I think it's a sport weight, and that is the entire problem with this one. This one, I absolutely love the texture to this pattern. I love texture in general, and that's why I love learning to knit, is because I can create fabrics with lots of texture. And I think it calls for a DK weight, and the problem is this is more of a sport weight or even fingering. I think it's more sport weight, and so the fabric is a little bit looser and not as dense as it should be. But I wanted to use up this fabric. I didn't have enough to make anything else out of it. And I like it, but my husband really doesn't like it. I think he doesn't get the point of small scarves like this. I know that this is more of a trend in the knitting community, these like really small, like the Sophie scarf by Petite Knit, and the really small scarves. In France, people wear a lot of scarves, and the small scarf isn't as much a thing here. Scarves are supposed to protect your throat, especially when it's cold out, so it's not as much a fashion accessory. I mean, it is, but it's also utilitarian here in France. For example, when someone has a sore throat, like my colleagues, when they have a sore throat, they'll come to work and keep their necks wrapped to keep it warm because it's supposed to help heal faster. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a French thing. So I think my French husband thinks that this sort of like teeny tiny scarf, even though it is made of wool, is just kind of like dinky and ridiculous looking. Especially, he really doesn't like the ends. He thinks it looks like ratty. And I somewhat agree, but it's my creation and I love it. So I don't know. I'm thinking of maybe purchasing the larger size because Kuruvikika published a separate pattern that is double the size, and so it would be a more substantial sized scarf. And I do have a second ball of this yarn. I could unravel this completely, even though it took me like a month to knit. Because the pattern was a little bit complicated. Yeah, I could make it in a bigger one. We'll see. We'll see. I'll put that aside because I can't wear it anymore anyway. I'll have to wait until next fall or next spring to wear it. But yeah, let me know what you think. Is it ratty? Is it ridiculously small? Should I make the larger one? And does this heather purple suit me? I think so. My husband does not. I think so. The second project is this Créabea Tolsta tee in this vegan wool by Kremke. I think it's a blend of viscose and cotton and linen, and it's in this sort of eggshell color, like this slightly pink seashell-y color. And I think that this one I finished making at the end of the summer last year, but I didn't block it until recently because by the time I finished it, it was too cool to actually wear it. And so I put it away and didn't have the courage or didn't really feel like taking it out and blocking it until now. And I wore it recently, and I think that this color is way too close to my natural skin tone. I don't look naked, but it doesn't look great. It looks like my flesh. And so I'm not sure if I'll wear it so much, or I'll need to pair it with a scarf or something to sort of break up the color near my face. But yeah, I still think it looks really nice, and the sheen's really pretty, and I really liked working with this wool. It's very drapey, the fabric that it creates, and so I'll have to watch out for it growing. But yeah, I like it. It's a great tee. This pattern is pretty easy to follow for beginners. I think I would definitely make it again. I like the raglan sleeve detail. I like the size and the shape. I think that the fit is great. It's not too loose, not too tight. And yeah, I'll just have to make it in more flattering colors. The last knitting project that I finished and that I was very, very proud of because I've been working on it for a long, long time is this Crebe kip sweater that I made in this Ulysse wool by Durham Natura in the Poivre Blanc colorway, or white pepper colorway. And I have mixed feelings about this one. So this was not for beginners, this pattern. It was somewhat hard to follow, and I ended up having to go back, like rip back and redo a lot, and especially when it came to the increasing at the beginning of the sleeve, it was super complicated to follow. It was not at all intuitive because the instructions are given how to increase, but once you get the main pattern, the instructions don't show you how to incorporate the pattern into the shaping. So especially for each size, you're meant to just figure it out, which is not easy because when you're increasing the pattern, because it's 2 by 2, you end up overlapping and having to create like a 3 or a 4 sometimes. So anyway, the pattern doesn't work when you're increasing or decreasing. You have to fiddle with it and you have to sort of fudge it. And so there was that, and then also getting it to line up sort of the front and the back, getting the pattern to line up, you have to figure it out yourself. And so I felt that that was a little bit disappointing. And for a beginner, when I'm doing those techniques for the very first time, especially for the increase of the sleeves, for example, managing the pattern at the same time was just really hard. I ended up doing this at least 5 times and spending like weeks on it. So there's that. Also, I think that I'm not really happy with the fit because when I blocked it to the measurements suggested by the pattern. I find that it's a little bit more boxy on me than I would have liked. And then also there's no decreasing in the sleeves. So it's equal widths at the beginning of the sleeve and at the end. And so it just sort of hangs open at my wrists. And I think I blocked it a little bit too short. I'm gonna try and reblock it. I'm not sure if that's possible, let me know. Reblock it so it's a little bit longer. But I find that the way it hangs at the bottom of the sleeve really inconvenient because it gets caught on everything. On door handles especially. I have almost turning on the water at the sink, gotten it stuck on the sink nozzle and had the water go all the way down my arm, for example. It's just not practical. And so I don't end up wearing it unless I can push up the sleeves and just roll them up and wear it that way. And then the last thing is I don't think I like the color. I have been, as I've gotten into knitting, trying to wear more natural colors and play around with natural colors because I think that brown especially is having a moment at this time, and beige. And I don't think I can wear beige. I think that my skin just doesn't like, and this one is, when I think of Poivre Blanc or white pepper, I think of white and gray or black. I don't think of this like beigey green sort of, I don't know, mushroom color. This is, yeah, this is not, like the camera's not distorting the color. This is, here's against white, for example, to show you what it looks like. It's, yeah, it's got sort of green in it. It's like a yellowy green. And that does not look good on me. So I don't know, I might donate this to someone. It is still a really nice sweater in terms of weight. So it's a sport weight yarn. And so in the interim seasons like spring and fall, when it's kind of cold and blustery and like 40 to 50 degrees and you want a layer that keeps you warm but not too warm, like you don't need a polar layer, this is great. But yeah, I don't think it looks very flattering on me. I love the texture. I absolutely love this herringbone texture, and that's why I picked this pattern to make. So I don't know, maybe I'll wear it with a scarf or something and then try and lengthen the sleeve somehow. Maybe block it again and make it a little bit slimmer in the body and longer. But yeah, the color's not really for me, and I don't think I'd make this again. It was just too complicated to figure out the instructions on my own. But I do love the herringbone pattern, and it's a shame. Oh well. And then really quickly, I have some embroidery projects to show you. So I finished my William Morris Strawberry Thief bookmark that I was cross-stitching, and I've been working on this for about 2 years, just sort of on the side because embroidery and cross-stitching is not my main hobby. And yeah, I really love how it turned out. It was a little bit difficult because there were a lot of colors to juggle, but it is sort of too thick to use in a book unless it's a hardcover book, because I think that it would deform the pages in a small paperback, for example. But I use it as just more decoration in my sewing corner. I love the colors. And yeah, I'm happy I finished that. Oh, it's so cute. And then I have been taking some traditional Japanese embroidery classes, sort of on the side. They happen once every month and a half or so. And I'm now on level 5 or 6, I think. And in the 5th session, we made this one. This is the butterfly pattern that we were working on. And then in the 6th session, we did this one, which is a black walnut, I think it's called in Japanese. I can't remember the Japanese. I'm very sorry. This traditional Japanese method is kogenzashi, not sashiko, and it's got these very dense stitches, and it was used to mattress pieces of fabric together to create warmth and to create density and warmth. Towards the north of Japan is where it was used historically, and I just love it. I love the texture it creates, and I can't wait until we learn how to put them together so I can embroider like bands. The next session is not until after summer vacation, but I'm excited to continue learning this method, and it's just so lovely. I can't wait to put it to use in my sewing projects. So those are all the projects I made this spring season, and I have lots of plans for my favorite season, this summer season, that I will share with you very soon. I will link below all of the patterns that I showed you, as well as the fabric shops that I mentioned if I can. So don't hesitate to check that out and let me know which of these was your favorite, or which was your favorite project that you worked on this spring season. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to like and subscribe so you don't miss any new videos from me. I hope that you are all doing well and that your spring season is getting warmer and sunnier and that you have lots of creative projects on the horizon. I will see you again here soon with a new video. Take care and bye-bye.